Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how the woman who dares to dream big, who walks with quiet strength, often walks alone? She may be surrounded by many, yet understood by few. She is the chosen woman, not by popularity but by purpose. To be chosen is not a matter of ego or elitism, it is a matter of calling. A chosen woman doesn't follow the crowd because she was never meant to blend in. She walks a different path because she is carrying a different purpose. Being chosen means being set apart, and being set apart often comes with solitude. It's not always loneliness, it's space. Space to grow, to evolve, to rise. She walks alone because her vision is rare, her standards are high, her silence is sacred, her presence is not for everyone, and she is finally okay with that. Let me share with you the 7 reasons why a chosen woman always walks alone. A chosen woman walks alone because she is attuned to a higher calling, one that whispers to her soul in ways the world cannot hear or understand. This calling isn't always loud. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or visible signs. It often begins as a quiet knowing, a deep sense that she was made for more than the life she sees around her. While others chase what is trendy, immediate, or easily attainable, she is guided by something deeper, a vision planted within her long before anyone else could see its value. This higher calling acts as a compass, steering her away from distractions that may look appealing but ultimately don't align with her purpose. She is aware that every decision she makes has weight. Every step forward is calculated not in fear but in reverence for the assignment she has been given. She doesn't move just because everyone else is moving. She moves when the time is right, when the ground is prepared, and when her spirit says now. Because her path is unique, the chosen woman quickly realizes that few will understand her pace, her silence, or her boundaries. Friends may drift, relationships may strain, invitations may stop coming. But instead of mourning what she is left behind, she begins to value what she is walking toward. Her calling creates an inner clarity that makes compromise impossible. And with that clarity comes a solitude that's not empty, but sacred. In moments of doubt, she returns to her source. Whether it's God, divine purpose, or the inner fire that refuses to be extinguished, she understands that her life is not an accident. There is an assignment on her name. This keeps her grounded when life gets uncertain and keeps her humble when others try to idolize her strength. The chosen woman does not walk alone out of pride, she walks alone out of obedience. As she continues to rise, people may begin to question her, or worse, try to distract her. They may ask, why don't you come out more? Why are you always so serious? Why are you doing that when no one else is? And still, she keeps walking, not out of defiance but because she has counted the cost. She knows that every yes to her calling often requires 1,000 silent no's to what does not serve it. There are times she wishes the path were easier. Loneliness creeps in. The weight of responsibility feels like too much. But then, in quiet moments, while journaling, praying, building, or resting, she feels the undeniable pull again, a sense that she is exactly where she needs to be. This isn't just ambition, it's divine alignment. She didn't choose the path for applause, the path chose her for impact. But many don't realize is that her solitude is her sanctuary. In the quiet she hears clearly. In the stillness she receives direction. In the silence she refines her purpose. Others may see an empty table, but she sees a strategy session with destiny. Her isolation is not punishment, it's preparation. A woman who knows her mission has no time to dilute her energy entertaining everything that does not feed it. This higher calling demands not just talent or effort, but transformation. The woman she is today is not yet the woman she is becoming, and the process in between requires pruning, patience, and perspective. While the world is busy clapping for surface success, she is being called into deeper things: legacy, healing, influence, service. Her walk is different because her purpose is different. A chosen woman walks alone because she has made an unshakable decision. She refuses to settle. Not for comfort, not for convenience, and certainly not for conformity. Her soul craves depth, authenticity, and alignment. While the world may offer her shortcuts, distractions, and surface level satisfaction, she knows that settling would mean betraying the essence of who she is. And so she walks, even if she must walk alone. She has seen what happens when people shrink themselves to fit into relationships, careers, and communities that no longer match their spirit. She's watched bright women dim their light just to be accepted. And she has learned, sometimes painfully, that to settle is to sacrifice parts of yourself you may never get back. That's a price she's no longer willing to pay. Her peace is too valuable, her growth too hard won, her vision too costly. Settling is not just about choosing less, it's about choosing what doesn't serve. It could be a relationship where she is tolerated but not celebrated, a job that pays the bills but starves the soul, a friendship that drains instead of nurtures. Over time, she has learned to identify the subtle signs, the ache of spiritual misalignment, the heaviness that comes from ignoring intuition, the quiet grief of knowing you are meant for more but staying where you are because it's easier. She walks away from those things, even if it means walking into the unknown. People often mistake her standards for arrogance, but they fail to see the battles behind her boundaries. They don't understand the heartbreaks that taught her what not to tolerate. They weren't there for the nights she cried alone, the seasons of silence, the inner work that forced her to choose herself. She doesn't demand perfection from others. She simply requires honesty, respect, and the same depth she's worked so hard to cultivate in herself. Her refusal to settle is an act of self-respect. It's the way she honors the sacrifices her past self made to get her here. Every time she says no to less, she is saying yes to the woman she is becoming. She is creating space for the life she actually desires, not the one others project onto her. And in that sacred space, even in its emptiness, she finds power. She is no longer filling her life with noise just to avoid the quiet. Walking alone becomes her way of choosing quality over quantity, not just in people but in experiences, goals, and even in her own thinking. She doesn't rush into commitments. She doesn't say yes out of fear of being left behind. She has learned to sit still and wait for what is truly meant for her. And in that stillness, she discovers clarity. Settling to her is not just a compromise, it's a detour. And her calling doesn't allow detours. Though the road she walks might look empty from the outside, but internally it is rich with conviction. It takes courage to say, I'd rather wait than force something that doesn't feel right. It takes strength to release what is almost right for what is fully aligned. And it takes spiritual maturity to discern when something is sent to test your growth rather than support it. Her refusal to settle is not rebellion, it's revelation. This kind of discipline makes her presence rare. It makes her energy refined. It makes her journey uncommon. But that's the point. She didn't come here to live an average life. She didn't fight to heal, to grow, to evolve, just to accept what doesn't nurture her soul. So she walks alone, not because she believes no one is worthy of her time, but because she believes she is worthy of more than what the world tries to hand her too soon. A chosen woman often walks alone, not because she wants to, but because she is misunderstood by many. The world struggles to make sense of a woman who isn't desperate for validation, who chooses depth over small talk, solitude over noise, and purpose over popularity. She does not fit the mold, and that unsettles people. Her presence disrupts the comfort of conformity, and her spirit challenges everything shallow. As a result, she becomes a mystery that most never take the time to understand. She is often labeled too intense, too ambitious, too quiet, too emotional, or too serious, when in reality she is simply too real for a world that has grown used to performance. Her emotions are not weakness but wisdom. Her boundaries are not walls but protection. Her silence is not arrogance but discernment. But to those unwilling to look beyond the surface, she is misread. Instead of seeking to understand her, people project their own insecurities onto her. The chosen woman doesn't wear her story on her sleeve. She has walked through storms in silence, rebuilt herself in private, and carries battles that are invisible to the untrained eye. Her calm is hard-earned. Her strength is not loud, it is rooted. Because she doesn't explain herself to everyone, people assume she has something to hide. But in truth, she simply knows that not everyone has earned access to her truth. Her life is not an open book, it's sacred scripture. People don't always know what to do with someone who doesn't play by unspoken rules. She doesn't gossip to bond. She doesn't compromise to fit in. She doesn't pretend to be okay just to make others comfortable. So she's often the one left out, talked about, or overlooked. But what others call aloof, she calls self-preserving. She would rather be misunderstood for being true to herself than be embraced for being someone she is not. Even those closest to her may misread her. Family may call her distant. Friends may label her changed. But the truth is, she has grown. She has evolved beyond old versions of herself that once needed approval. She no longer explains every move, or softens her light for others to feel secure. And while their transformation is beautiful, it can also be isolating. Not everyone who is part of her past is equipped to journey with her into her future. There are moments when the misunderstanding stings, when it feels like a heavy weight to constantly be read the wrong way. But over time, she begins to see it as a gift. Being misunderstood forces her to go inward. It sharpens her sense of identity. It teaches her to ground herself in self-awareness rather than external opinions. It makes her stronger, quieter, more intentional. And from that space, she grows even more unapologetically into who she was always meant to be. Because so few truly understand her, she becomes her own safest place. She learns to validate her own feelings, celebrate her own wins, and grieve her losses without always being seen. She stops expecting others to get it and starts trusting that the right ones, the aligned souls, will. Until then, she walks alone, not bitter but clear. Her solitude becomes a form of sovereignty. Misunderstanding becomes a kind of filter, revealing who's really meant to walk beside her. Her life becomes a mirror for others. Some admire her authenticity and are inspired. Others are uncomfortable, triggered even by her unwillingness to shrink. And while she cannot control how others perceive her, she can control her truth. So she continues, misunderstood perhaps, but unwavering. Her clarity, her presence, and her purpose were never meant to be universally accepted. They were meant to be divinely assigned. A chosen woman walks alone because she has learned, sometimes the hard way, to protect her energy, her time, her mind, her spirit. They are no longer up for casual access. She understands now that energy is not infinite, it is sacred, and where she invests, it directly shapes the quality of her life. Not everyone is worthy of the emotional real estate she once handed out freely. She has seen what it costs to constantly pour into others while leaving herself empty, and she no longer lives that way. There was a time when she said yes out of guilt, stayed in draining environments out of habit, or maintained connections simply because of shared history. But experience taught her that not all familiarity is healthy and not every bond is mutual. Some people only come to take, to confuse, or to distract. She's learned to recognize those patterns and now chooses distance over drama, silence over chaos, and boundaries over betrayal. Her energy is not cold, it is curated. It is directed toward things that nourish her, goals that matter, relationships that uplift, and environments that reflect the peace she works so hard to maintain. She does not entertain gossip, tolerate inconsistency, or invest in one-sided efforts. Her peace is too precious to be gambled with, and if that means walking alone, she does so willingly, because protection is not isolation, it is intention. The more aligned she becomes, the more sensitive she is to what disturbs her spirit. Loud spaces, negative conversations, emotionally erratic people, all of it takes a toll. And while others may label her as distant or too sensitive, she knows better. She knows that sensitivity is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the body and soul's way of alerting her when something or someone is not in harmony with who she is becoming. Protecting her energy also means protecting her peace of mind. She is cautious with what she consumes, from social media to news to even the tone of her morning conversations. She understands that not all chaos is external. Some of it enters subtly, through passive scrolling or overexposure to negativity. She has built rituals and routines to guard her inner world: solitude, journaling, mindfulness, prayer, anything that helps her stay centered in a world that pulls her in 1,000 directions. She is no longer ashamed of walking away from what drains her. She doesn't owe explanations for the boundaries she sets. She doesn't feel guilty for saying no without justification. Her well-being is her responsibility, and she carries it like armor. The chosen woman is not unkind, she is clear. And clarity, she's learned, makes others uncomfortable only when they benefit from your confusion. Protecting her energy also means preserving her vision. She doesn't discuss her dreams with just anyone. She doesn't seek input from those who don't understand her values. She knows that unsolicited opinions and unearned access can derail what she is building. Her ideas, her plans, her inner world, they are guarded not because she is hiding, but because she is cultivating. And cultivation requires privacy, silence, and space. Most of all, she protects her evolution. Growth is delicate, healing is intimate. She cannot afford to stay entangled in spaces that don't support her becoming. She is not angry nor bitter. She is simply discerning. And discernment leads her to walk alone, not out of fear or pride, but out of reverence for the woman she is still unfolding into. A chosen woman walks alone because she is in a season of becoming, a sacred, often invisible stage of transformation that demands space, silence, and solitude. This season isn't always beautiful. In fact, it's often messy, raw, and riddled with growing pains. She is not who she once was, and she is not yet who she is becoming. She exists in between, in the tension of transition, where clarity is forming slowly and deeply. And because this part of the journey is so personal, so delicate, she walks alone. In this season, she's shedding old skin, old habits, old thoughts, old attachments. All of it is being stripped away. There is grief in this, even when the release is necessary. She's saying goodbye to versions of herself that once helped her survive, but can no longer help her thrive. And while that shedding makes room for her evolution, it also requires mourning. People may not see the internal war she's fighting, the emotional labor it takes to outgrow patterns that no longer align with her future. She is learning to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, to face her wounds rather than cover them, to take accountability for her healing without waiting for closure that may never come. This season of becoming is not about external achievement. It's not about applause or milestones. It's about inner reconstruction. It's quiet, humbling, and often misunderstood. But she stays the course because she knows that nothing lasting is built overnight, especially not a healed, whole version of herself. Because she's in a space of such intentional growth, not everyone can walk with her. Small talk doesn't satisfy her anymore. Surface level relationships feel empty. Environments that once felt familiar now feel suffocating. Her soul is stretching, and that kind of expansion creates distance. Not from arrogance, but from alignment. She is not isolating herself to push people away, but because she needs room to listen to herself without external noise. This is the season where she is learning who she is, when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when the world offers no reassurance, and still she must keep moving forward. It's a season of discipline, where she keeps promises to herself, shows up for her goals, and honors her process even when the results are invisible. The loneliness is real, but so is the transformation. She knows the quiet work she is doing now will speak loudly later. She is building trust with herself. Every small decision to rest instead of overextend, to walk away from what no longer serves, to speak truth even when her voice trembles, is laying the foundation for a stronger, wiser, more grounded woman. She is learning to become the woman her younger self needed and her future self will be proud of. And this becoming cannot be rushed. It cannot be validated. It must be lived, step by sacred step. What many don't see is that she is battling doubt and fear, while still choosing faith. She wakes up on days when she feels unseen, unworthy, uncertain, and still commits to her process. The woman she is becoming is not perfect, but she is powerful. She is learning to love herself not just when she is shining, but when she is stumbling. She is embracing grace. She is rewriting narratives. She is becoming whole. In this sacred season, solitude becomes her sanctuary, not because she dislikes people, but because she needs the stillness to reconnect with her purpose. Growth can be noisy on the inside, filled with reflection, resistance, revelation. And so she walks alone, not as a sign of weakness, but as a declaration. This season is mine. This becoming is personal. This journey is sacred. A chosen woman walks alone because her standards are high, and unapologetically so. These standards are not superficial or rooted in ego, but built from lived experience, from lessons learned in pain, and from self-worth she fought hard to reclaim. She has been through too much, healed too deeply, and grown too far to entertain anything that doesn't align with the woman she is becoming. And because of that, her presence doesn't just inspire, it intimidates. Her standards make people uncomfortable, not because she demands perfection, but because she refuses to settle for less than what she gives. She expects effort because she offers consistency. She asks for honesty because she tells the truth. She looks for emotional intelligence because she's done the work to heal. These aren't preferences. They are prerequisites for access, and not everyone is ready for that level of accountability. She no longer entertains half commitments, unclear intentions, or emotionally unavailable interactions. People who want access to her life must come with clarity, integrity, and presence. That intimidates those who are used to women bending, compromising, or shrinking just to be chosen. But a chosen woman does not chase, she chooses. And if it means walking alone, so be it. Her solitude is less lonely than being surrounded by those who can't meet her where she stands. Her standards extend beyond relationships. They shape how she moves in her work, her goals, her friendships, and her spiritual life. She will not stay in jobs that suffocate her purpose. She will not engage in friendships rooted in competition or gossip. She will not ignore red flags just to keep the peace. Her life is curated with care, and that curation creates a natural filter. Many admire her from a distance, but few can walk with her up close. So she is often told she is too much, too opinionated, too focused, too intense. But what they really mean is she can't be controlled. She can't be manipulated into lowering her standards just to be accepted. She doesn't fear rejection because she knows what it costs to abandon herself just to belong. She's been there before. She has chosen herself enough times now to know. The right people won't ask her to shrink. Yes, her expectations are high, but they are also clear. She communicates directly. She sets boundaries early. She expresses her needs with maturity. And yet, in a world where emotional unavailability is normalized and dysfunction is romanticized, her clarity is confronting. People mistake her strength for harshness and her discernment for judgment. But the truth is, she is just no longer willing to sacrifice her peace for the sake of being liked. What others call intimidating is often just a woman who knows her value. She doesn't play games. She doesn't pretend to be less intelligent, less ambitious, or less passionate. She doesn't mute her fire to make others comfortable. And yes, that level of ownership can be confronting for people who are still hiding from their own growth. But she is not here to dim her light. She is here to shine. And anyone who can't handle that isn't meant to walk beside her. Her standards protect her. They filter out what is inconsistent, insincere, or unworthy. And though it narrows her circle, it strengthens her life. Fewer distractions, fewer regrets, more peace, more purpose. She walks alone not because no one is good enough, but because she is no longer interested in convincing anyone to rise. She invites, she inspires, but she will not drag. Her standards may intimidate, but they also liberate, and in that liberation, she finds her strength. A chosen woman walks alone because she belongs to a higher calling, one that pulls her beyond the expectations of the world around her. She is not driven solely by material success, social validation, or popularity. Her steps are guided by purpose, a deep, unshakable inner knowing that she is meant to do something meaningful with her life. This calling is not always loud or glamorous. Sometimes it whispers in solitude. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. But always it demands alignment. And that alignment often requires distance from the ordinary. This calling isn't something she chose casually. It's something that chose her. It emerged through her deepest pain, her most silent seasons, her hardest lessons. She has felt it tugging at her heart in moments when she could have taken the easier path, when she could have settled, blended in, or simply followed the crowd. But she didn't. Something in her refused to compromise her soul for comfort. That something is her calling. And it constantly calls her upward, inward, and forward, even when the path is lonely. Because of this, she often feels like she doesn't quite fit in. While others are chasing trends, she is building legacy. While others are obsessed with image, she is committed to substance. While others are comfortable with routine, she is reaching for something more. This otherness can feel isolating, but it's also a compass. It reminds her that she wasn't meant to be ordinary. She was meant to live on purpose. And that kind of living doesn't come with a crowd. At least not at first. People don't always understand the decisions she makes. She turns down opportunities that look great on paper. She lets go of relationships that once felt safe. She walks away from environments that no longer support her spirit. To outsiders, it may seem reckless, but to her, it's obedience. Obedience to her intuition, to her growth, to the voice inside that says, you were made for more than this. She's not following a trend, she's following truth. And that truth demands focus. She can't afford to be everywhere, doing everything, pleasing everyone. Her calling asks for discipline, silence, separation, the kind that creates space for deeper listening. She often spends time alone, Not because she is antisocial, but because she knows that her clarity comes in the quiet. While others are distracted, she is discerning. While others are chasing what's urgent, she is tending to what is eternal. Her calling has also changed her priorities. She no longer lives for the short term high or external praise. She measures success differently now, by the peace she feels, the purpose she serves, the lives she impacts, even if it's just one. She knows that many of the most powerful assignments in life are unseen, uncelebrated, and often misunderstood. But she shows up anyway, because her life is not about performance, it's about alignment with something greater than herself. There is a spiritual weight to being chosen, and she carries it with quiet strength. She feels deeply. She observes what others miss. She senses shifts in people, energy, and direction, and she adjusts accordingly. Her intuition is sharp because her calling has trained it to be. She's had to rely on it when nothing else made sense. She's had to trust it in moments when logic failed and only faith remained. And in that trust, she has learned to walk away, walk forward, and sometimes walk alone. Even when she questions the timing, even when the path feels unclear, she knows she's not lost, she is led. Her calling anchors her when storms come. It reminds her that loneliness is not the same as abandonment, that silence is not the same as stillness, that being misunderstood is not a sign she's off track. It's often proof that she's exactly where she's meant to be. And so, even in solitude, she stays the course, not because it's easy. And so, the chosen woman walks alone, not because she is broken, bitter, or unreachable, but because she is becoming. She walks with purpose, with intention, with grace. Her solitude is not a prison, it is a sanctuary. It is where she heals, grows, reflects, and listens to the voice within. She is not waiting to be rescued, validated, or understood. She is rising, slowly, quietly, powerfully, into the woman she was always destined to be. Her path may be narrow, her circle may be small, but her spirit is vast. She carries the wisdom of her wounds and the vision of her calling like a crown. And though few may truly understand her, she understands herself. That is her power, that is her peace. So if you ever see her walking alone, do not pity her. She is not lonely. She is aligned. Because the chosen woman doesn't need a crowd to confirm her worth. She walks alone because she walks with purpose. And that in itself is sacred.